Attention, please. Eastern Airlines Flight 19, now ready for departure.
Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express Monorail. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're entering the vacation kingdom of the world.
There's enough land here to hold all the ideas and plans we could possibly imagine. We call it Epcot. Will be our experimental prototype city of tomorrow.
Welcome to another episode of the Retro Disney World podcast, taking you back to the vacation kingdom of the world, the way it was, and the way it is in your memories.
Okay, welcome everybody to episode 20 of the Retro Disney World podcast. This episode is titled America on Parade, where we're going to take you back to one of the parades that was done in the Magic Kingdom to celebrate the country's bicentennial. And with me, as always, tonight is JT Cougar. How's it going, JT?
Good, Todd. How you doing?
Pretty good. Can't complain.
Good.
Mr. Brian P. Miles from the City of Brotherly Love in Philadelphia. I added that in for you this month, Brian.
Absolutely. You've shortened my introduction. Hello, everybody.
And last but not least, we have Hal Bowers. How's it going tonight, Hal?
Aloha. Doing good.
Doing good. Drying out?
Yes. Is that about my drinking?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
What's he?
Oh, the rain. The rain.
Yes,
yes. We had that hurricane or tropical storm.
Colin.
That's right. Colin came through. All right. So before we get into all the other areas, we actually always go through the corrections and comments, and we're going to kind of mold that right into the listener mail as well. We got a lot of comments and not only some corrections, but some different things to talk about. So this is going to kind of all be pushed into one little segment here, but we've got a lot to go through. First of all, I have a personal a comment here and a correction. Last month, we read from my parents' or my mother's travel journal, and I mentioned it was September 11th, 1972. That threw a couple people for a loop, and what we mentioned in last month's episode was that was the date, September 11th, 1972, that the Grand Prix Raceway was ripped apart. However, if you look at satellite or aerial photography from that time, that's correct. So flipping back through my mother's diary, I realized that despite the title saying 1972 in the beginning, about 40 pages in, where in this diary, there's a title page that says The Bahamas and Disney World 1973, September 5th through September 12th. So it was indeed September 11th, 1973 that the Grand Prix Raceway was ripped up. So
well, we didn't want to say nothing, Todd.
I know you guys picked up on it. Yeah, could have edited that out, saved me all this breath. So thanks to our astute listeners for calling that out. But all right, so let's move on to the next area here of different corrections we received. We got a bunch for the Kitchen Cabaret. That was a couple episodes ago. JT, what did we get on that?
Well, the first one is from Scott Marchino. He actually, I love that he addresses this directly to Hal, like you're the god of Kitchen Cabaret, the creator, the everything. He says he thinks Mr. Mayo at one point was a jar of spaghetti sauce and barbecue sauce was something green. Any info on that, or was it just paint that was on the shelf that day?
No, that is actually accurate. So.
Ooh.
What I did not mention is when Kraft ceased the sponsorship and Nestle took over, there was a brief period of time prior to Food Rocks when Kitchen Cabaret ran. And as we talked about, those products were painted specifically to look like Kraft mayonnaise and things. So after Nestle took over, they actually repainted just the kitchen crackpots to look like generic things like spaghetti sauce and a couple of other items, so it didn't have that direct Kraft representation anymore. So he is totally right.
And for those at home, if you have your Kitchen Cabaret timeline up on the wall, you can go insert that at the appropriate date. So, well,
did
Scott,
you say kitchen crackpot?
The Kitchen Crackpots. That was the name of the band.
Oh, okay.
And just that played in the center there.
All right.
I know. Nerd,
so Scott.
Nerd.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that.
Yeah, the most significant thing about the change in sponsors there was that when Nestle started to sponsor it, They started the station down in the food court where kids could make their own Nestle Toll House chocolate chip cookies.
What?
Yeah, there
No
was
way.
a whole cookie making station, and you would mix up the thing, and then they'd bake it in the oven, and you'd make your own chocolate chip cookies.
Wow.
They had like
You
a
just
whole
sit there?
yeah,
Like,
well,
wait?
they had like it was like a whole program where kids got in the little chef hat and an apron, and
Okay.
yeah, it
Cool.
was-
Very cool.
And save some money on labor.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Make the kids do it.
Well, next one we got was from Reese, and she had something she found at her grandparents' house. She sent us a picture of it. Did you get a chance to see that? Anybody?
It was Mr. Tomato, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, that's. I was just seeing. Yeah, she had any idea what it would be, or would it just be named Tomato? So that was officially Mr. Tomato.
Yeah, just send us a picture of the plush of Mr. Tomato.
Exactly. And it looks like from her email, she had it at her grandma and grandfather's house and came across the item, but as her grandfather couldn't recall what it was. So yes, it was Mr. Tomato. It was a plush toy that you could buy at the shop at the end of the Kitchen Cabaret. What was the name of the shop again?
Oh, Broccoli and Company.
Broccoli and Company, that's it.
Which, of course, I know off the top of my head for no apparent reason.
Well, come on. Scott addressed the first one to Hal.
Yeah.
I went directly to you for this one.
This is a video chat. If you look behind How, it is just a flurry of Kitchen Cabaret items behind him.
Including
It's just,
the timeline.
Yeah, and the
That's
timeline
right.
on the wall.
It looks like when they have those TV shows where you walk into like a serial killer's lair and there's like
Yeah,
pictures
that's
and
what I
maps
was
and like
going with.
strings. That's exactly what it looks like.
That's right.
Except in this case, Hal, it's cereal CE.
All right.
Very
With that,
good.
let's move. Let's go back to
off
last.
of Kitchen
Yeah,
Cabaret.
we have to go off of Kitchen Cabaret. So
The puns never stop with Kitchen Cabaret. I love it so much.
Brian's clapping to himself right now. All right. Well, last month we did a very popular episode on the Living Seas, and we received a lot of feedback and a lot of additional information. And the first thing, we want to actually play this for you. We received a voicemail from Joe from Orlando, Florida, and he listened to the episode, and he had something really interesting to say about the scuba diving as well as the tank in the middle where we talked about where the diver would go in and rise up through the tube.
Hi, this is Joe from Orlando, Florida. I just listened to your episode on the Living Seas, the Deluge, and wanted to give you some additional information that you might not have known about. I've been scuba diving, or have scuba dove a few times in the Living Seas, and some interesting facts about it are that the aquarium there has perfect visibility, meaning that you can see from wall to wall without any obstructions, which at 203 feet, I believe, is further than anything you would see in nature. If guests are lucky enough, they sometimes can see hidden Mickeys that the scuba diving workers will create out of some of the loose rocks at the base of it. These aren't always visible to the workers, but if you have the opportunity to do the Dive Quest program, you can see them there as well. Also, the diver lockout chamber, when you're on the tour there's actually a stairwell that's off stage that takes the diver from the first floor up to the top of that chamber. And I believe that chamber only fills with fresh water, and it's not connected to the main aquarium in any way whatsoever. So a diver will actually be on the first floor, walk up a small staircase, go into the top of the tube, descend, and then ascend from there as well. And one last thing to mention, there is an acrylic chamber that's at the base of the aquarium that is pressurized to 1 atmosphere. So if divers get tired, they can actually enter into it from the bottom, take off their mask, and they can breathe normally and talk normally. This was actually featured in an episode of Full House many years ago, where Uncle Jesse and Uncle Joey broadcast a radio show from inside the Living Seas. And I think there was an additional gag there of them being afraid of the sharks. But in reality, if you're scuba diving there, the sharks are actually very timid and more scared of you. The one creature you have to be worried of is the dolphins. If you look closely next time you're in the Living Seas, you'll notice that the area where the dolphins are have a series of thin poles that block the dolphins off from all of the larger sea creatures. And it's because the dolphins are very territorial. So when you're scuba diving in there, you're warned not to go anywhere near the dolphin enclosure because they will attack the bars that separate them. So surprisingly, the most dangerous creature in all the living seas are the dolphins. And my time there was great, and I just want to say your podcast is fantastic. I hope this information helps out. If you want to add it to your posting, please feel free. And I look forward to hearing the next episode. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Well, that's really interesting information that the water in that ascent or descent tank was not salted, and obviously if they got up top, they just ran across. Did anybody go and look up the Full House episode with Jesse and Uncle Joey broadcasting from the bottom of the tank?
Oh yeah. Well, I saw somebody got engaged or something, didn't they? In the restaurant.
Episode 23, there was this whole thing.
House.
They were in the tank. The episode was titled "The House Meets the Mouse" Part 1, and that's the obligatory show on ABC that takes a trip to Disney World and such. But yes, Uncle Joey and Jesse broadcast from the bottom. It's scuba gear, and there's people, as JT pointed out, there's people getting engaged in the Coral Reef restaurant. So kind of an interesting little thing. So, but awesome voicemail, Joe. Really appreciate it. So
thanks, Joe.
All right. So we also received some information about a swimming dog and a swimming Mickey. Now, we all see in the promotional shots and for the Living Seas that there's this shot of Mickey underwater, and it's my understanding that they did that a lot of times for promotional stuff. He may still come out for special events. Maybe I have anything else to add to that, and then how you know a little bit about the dog, right?
Yeah, so I didn't get to mention this on the last one, but for the first year or so, there was a dog named Che that was part of the dive team. So again, that whole trying to integrate animals with the divers working as a team. They actually had a dog, and it had a specially designed mask.
Oh, come on.
No, seriously. With an air tank, and it could swim underwater. I kid you not.
Did it hate it? I mean, it couldn't have liked that.
No, I bet. Assumably the dog was trained to do this, and it was perfectly fine with it.
Interesting. Now go back to the Mickey. Is that a special Mickey setup, or like is it just like the one that you would see on Main Street and they just threw a helmet on him and he jumped in?
I would not know the details. Simply, you can hide a scuba tank under there somewhere and put your big head on just like you would any place else, right? And
that's right.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, it could just be
I don't know how often he comes out either, too.
Somehow you'd have to be able to see through there too, right?
Yeah.
Or would it be the same costume that wore, like water skiing Mickey?
JT, you have your calling for the next episode.
Yeah, go find out.
Go for it.
I will go digging around when I'm down there.
I know that if you remember, they did have those pretty groovy communication systems where they could actually talk to the divers underwater and they could talk back.
Oh, really?
Which was the first time I think anybody had really seen that. So yeah, so a host could stand in the main room and actually talk to the diver, who could hear what they were saying via radio and actually respond back on a microphone, so they could hold conversations. As
breaker.
Yeah. Hey, good buddy.
We've got two more for the Living Seas here. Like we said, folks, these just came fast and furious this month. Russ Stringer wrote in, and he's a former cast member at the Living Seas. And if you guys remember, I thought there was a grouper named, I think I thought it was Oscar, but turns out it was a fish, by the type of fish is a Jewfish. And he was there. His name was Orson. And so I wasn't going crazy. I had the O correct, but it was Orson the Jewfish. And so he was indeed there for many years.
I did not see Orson.
Yeah, long gone.
See, what's funny is there was an animatronic giant Jewfish in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Horizons.
Russ also mentions that the tank has been drained, and in the past have had some serious issues with the filtration system. So we have to...
I'd like more info on that. Where'd everything go? Like we said, where'd Orson go?
Yeah. And the last comes to us from Kurt Shamala. He has uploaded a Living Seas TV special to YouTube. And this was when it, just after it first opened, I believe. It's got some great footage of the old original Seabase Alpha. And I think, how did you give it you gave it a watch, right?
I at least got to see some of the opening stuff before he had posted it. It does look like an awesome special. They do a lot of behind the scenes stuff. It's got some music. There's a section in it. Talk about your 80s. So there's a section in it with Simon Le Bon from Duran Duran, where he talks about his capsized yacht when he was doing the racing, just as part of the theme of the sea. And I believe they run the video of Rio.
Oh, they do?
From the band, yeah. And then there's also a song. Oh, there's a song in it which is kind of dreadful by... is it Laura Branigan?
Well, I was thinking this whole thing is hosted by John Ritter, too. He comes down the dive tank in the beginning. And he comes down and then cuts away to a scene, and then all of a sudden he's dressed and dry. It's kind of odd. The magic of television editing, which, if you want to know about that, you can visit the MGM studios to tell you about editing and the magic of television. There's some Bob Ballard footage in there, too. Well, young Bob Ballard.
I was right. So, yes, it was Laura Branigan. And there was also a cameo appearance by Olivia Newton-John.
Whoa.
Can't get much more 80s than this, kids.
No, it's totally great. So we'll post a link to that in this month's episode show notes and everything.
Thanks, Kurt.
Yep.
That's awesome, Kurt. Thank you for doing that.
So tons of Living Seas stuff, but we still have more. JT, what was that that wrote in something about the booze cruise, right? And retrofitting the boats?
Yeah, the restroom issue, right? Is that where we're at?
That was Christine Fox. I think they're from the Divas Diz podcast.
Yeah, she said they resurrected the idea and they may have been fitting boats to add bathrooms. I don't know. That's if confirmed or not, but that is interesting at least,
Yeah, we'll have to see if that. So this is in reference to the old booze cruise idea that we had mentioned a number of episodes back, where they're turning the ferry boats into adult beverage party barges, so to speak. But
love a good party barge.
Yeah.
She also mentioned that her husband did a lot of work on Disney property, and he was the lead on demolition of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And what was crazy about this is they have two of the big lava rocks in their home landscaping from 20,000 Leagues. So
we're going to seek you out.
Very nice yard art for sure.
Going to rent a long flatbed with a crane.
I wonder how big it is. Like, do you think it's like basketball or like
got to be interesting.
Big rocks.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're coordinating with Christine about being on her podcast too.
That's right. So. Yeah, so keep an eye out for that.
The Divas Diz podcast.
Yep. So thanks, Christine, for that. And now we are officially into the segment of listener mail. So we're going to turn this over to JT. He had the mailbag was so huge, as we all took a little bit this month. But what else do we have in terms of comments and other things coming in?
All right. Well, this was a tough month. Lots to sift through, lots to go through, look at, all that stuff. The first one I have is from Reese. Reese, first off, she wanted to know, and this is a good question because we do get asked these a lot, these generational questions, I'll call it. I want to know if we're doing a show on Muppet Vision 3D, and does somebody want to take that because you guys know the...
I'll let Brian take that because he responded.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Too, yeah.
We will eventually do a show on Muppet Vision 3D. I had a conversation last year with a puppeteer who worked with Jim Henson on the pre-show that runs in the queue while you're standing in there waiting to be let into the theater, on all those different interactions from the screens that are overhead. So I want him to come on the show and tell that story, and he's going to tell us that story someday. And we are at the 25-year mark just about now, I think, with Muppet Vision. What did it open, a year after the park?
Yeah, it was
25 years ago.
Yeah,
oh my
gosh. So we will do it because of course we love the Muppets.
Sure.
And so stay tuned. I think that'll be on the docket either 2016 or 2017.
Yep, absolutely.
All right.
It opened in May of 1991, so it is officially 25 years old.
Yeah, it's 25 years old this month. Happy birthday, Muppet Vision!
Yay!
Yep.
Yay.
Last month.
So.
Reese also mentions, and this is I know about this. It's she says there's a tree. If we're asking if we're aware of it, it's on the in the water, basically right as you're kind of rolling up to Fort Wilderness to past River Country, and there's all kinds of shoes hanging in it. Who has seen this? Anybody? You guys seen this before?
I have not.
I have seen this. Brian,
you have seen this.
Saw this together.
we're going to have to add this to a specific tour, but go ahead. Tell us a little bit.
Yeah, it's you roll past River Country. Say you're heading towards Fort Wilderness. Discovery Island's on your left. River Country's on your right. You go past River Country. There's a tree that's basically growing out of the water. Not really, it's probably shallow there, but covered in, we'll say, like, gang-style shoes thrown over the the telephone wires, but it's thrown at the tree. And they're all white shoes tied at the shoelaces. And the myth or the legend or whatever say is whenever one of the boat captains or somebody retires, they take their white boat shoes and they tie them together and throw them out there. And that's why all the shoes are there. And they're definitely there. You can see it. It's kind of I almost want to say eerie, especially at night when you roll by there. It's kind of creepy, but in the daytime, it's kind of cool looking. So
that's right.
Yes.
Yeah, Hal and I actually got up close and personal with it on New Year's week.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Share a water sprite or something and roll over there.
No, we had a fireworks cruise on Seven Seas Lagoon and Bay Lake, and they took us all around. And when you have a Disney captain steering your boat, he could take you right up to it and shine the floodlights on it. And Hal almost got close enough to snare a pair of wildcats.
No way.
Look at that.
Now, what kind of boat was that? Did you guys take the Grand One or?
No. We took a 10-passenger.
You had to row it yourself.
Oh, the pontoon.
Yeah, we took a pontoon boat.
All right. So that was Reese. Thank you, Reese, for that. We appreciate that. That was a good email there for sure. Last one. Chris Miles wrote us, and he's a younger listener, and he just kind of like gave us one of those thanks for doing the show. He takes him back to stuff he didn't know about. And he wishes he could have experienced it the way we talk about certain things. So thanks, Chris, for the kind words. We appreciate that. And that's all I got for listener mail this month.
All right. So, JT, tell them where they can find us, and that will wrap up this month's listener mail.
For emails, contacts, anything you want to tell us, podcast at RetroDisneyWorld.com. Send us a tweet, Instagram message, Facebook, anywhere you want to find us. We're there. Let us know what's on your mind.
Right. So with that, we are going to move on to the Audio Rewind Puzzler. We have a lot to give away this month, too. So don't forget, last month we actually were giving away 2 prizes, right, guys? We had the episode 19, which Brian was giving away the 2 All-Star, was it music and sports mugs?
They were movies. They were
movies. I'm sorry, All-Star movies.
They didn't say All-Star movies, but it was all movie stuff.
Movie stuff. So we're going to give those away in a second. We also have the George and Tony Entertainment Show podcast T-shirts. We're going to be giving those away for those of you that listened to episode 18.5 and identified the ending segment of that show, the music there. So let's go through that one first, too. So the first winner we have is he wrote in to us. Is Scott Marchino. He wrote in, and so congratulations. You get to get that T-shirt from the George and Tony Entertainment Show. And our second winner is Joel Wartko. So congratulations, you guys both received the T-shirt from the George and Tony Show. All right, and before we get to the winner of this month's, why don't we take a listen to last month's Audio Rewind Puzzler. All right, guys, did you get it? Who got this?
No, I've heard this, but I don't know Horizons.
So you just gave it away.
I know, but I don't know.
We did not have as many entries this month. Only 75% of those who wrote in actually got it correct. But the correct
answer, good guesses, though.
A lot of good guesses, yeah. So the correct answer was Space from Horizons. It was kind of the background music when you went through the space scene where they're assembling a space station. But really from the album, the Epcot Center album that was distributed in the mid-'80s, that's kind of where that song kind of stood out as one of the short pieces on that film, on that record. It was I remember buying it as a LP, and it's I think they added that it stayed on some of the park CDs for a while, didn't it? Now I remember,
yeah,
well into the '90s. So, So anyway, we do have a winner. Congratulations to Tom Yoder from Royal Oak, Michigan. So congratulations. You'll be receiving the mugs from Brian, so we'll get those out to you. And we have to add a couple different prizes here. Guys, we have the prize pot, and we need a prize for this month. And with that said, we had a very nice listener write into us. Joe Lanza wrote in and said, I've got some prizes for you to use in the audio rewind. So he has sent to us 2 mint condition. When I say mint, these are spectacular looking Disney news magazines from winter 1984-1985. And let me just tell you, they are chock full of awesome mid-80s photos, little quizzes on Match That Tune. There's some Disneyland stuff. Howard Johnson's Hotel Tower is in here. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but did any of you ever buy the Walt Disney ceiling fan? It was available in 1984 for $299. So another interesting thing in here is just how much do you think, guys, let's compact car, national car rental, 1984. What was a day, unlimited mileage? This is economy. Chevrolet, Chevette, or similar.
$20.
What was the question?
The rental cost per day for an economy car with National Car Rental in Orlando.
84, right?
So this was back before Rental Mama. It was probably like Rental Grandma, right?
That's right.
This was when OJ was pitching.
So we had the choices between economy, compact, mid-size, full size, and another full size.
Jumbo.
I'm going to say $9.
$9 per day.
I'm going to go 20.
20, Brian? Unlimited mileage.
$18.
You all have bid too low. $31 per day.
Which is the equivalent of about $75 now?
Yeah, so the next time you rent a car in Orlando and you're complaining about $35 a day, the full-size four-door Buick Century is similar, netted $41. All right, so the winner of this month's Audio Rewind will receive a copy of this Disney News, and we're also going to add it to the prize pot. Now, JT, what is in that prize pot? We've got, the list is huge.
It's getting bigger, and I need a new piece of paper here. That's the thing. First thing, we have an Orange Bird yo-yo. Next is a World of Motion brochure, a golf resort golf bag tag, an Epcot salt and pepper shaker set, Disney World glass candy dish, the Tomorrowland manual, and currently the things you just got this month. What is it called?
The Disney News, from
Disney
1984.
News, 84.
That's a huge prize pot. So how do you win the prize pot? Well, all entries to the Audio Rewind, whether they are correct or incorrect, are entered into the big drawing for the prize pot, which will be drawn in December 2016. And let's take a listen, though, so that you can enter to this month's Audio Rewind Puzzler.
Music surrounds us, laughter that found us, whirling around this carousel of light and woe.
All right, if you think you know the answer to this month's Audio Rewind Puzzler, so send your answer to podcast@retrodisneyworld.com. All entries should be received before July 12th, 2016. And we'll announce the winner randomly selected from all correct entries in the July episode.
So the prize pot, if you think about it, all these items, we're only 6 months in, and we're only halfway there.
Yeah.
And it is any email, right? Like any email, or does it have to be guesses for the Audio Rewind only?
Your guesses for the Audio Rewind, whether they're correct or incorrect, will be entered in there. So
we've said this before, but you could guess purple banana, and that would count as a guess.
It would count as a guess, Get you an entry.
And that is every month you get an additional entry for every time you guess.
Every time you guess, you're in. So
wow,
makes sense to take a stab at it, and you never know, you may win the prize for that month too. So
can we actually get a purple banana to put in the prize package?
We could. Yeah. I will look from the blue mayonnaise aisle in the store and see purple bananas.
So, all right. Well, thanks to everybody who wrote in for the Audio Rewind. But it's time to move on now to our main topic. And this is about America on Parade and how you are going to roll the clocks back and bring us back to the mid-'70s, a time of patriotism and bicentennial parades everywhere in the United States. And, well, most theme parks did something as well, and Disney wasn't going to be excluded. So they put together a rather interesting parade that has had some complaints and some nice things, had some nice things said about it as well. But tell us a little bit about how. Let's roll back the clock.
Yeah, and some lasting side effects too, I think.
That's true.
So America on Parade, I think, is one of the most blissfully bizarre things that the Walt Disney Company has ever done.
That's putting it nicely.
It's weird in a 1970s way, like the Muppets are weird in a 1970s way. I think it's the parade that'll remember as much for its giant sandwich being chased by a mustard container as it will for its patriotism. And we actually have some film footage of America's on Parade to share with everybody, right? So
correct.
There'll be a link in the show so you can sit down and take a look at this thing, because it's really kind of fascinating. So
we have the day version and the night version.
Oh yeah.
So we got both. Yep.
Excellent. Awesome. Yeah, and that is one of the things. They actually ran this parade twice a day, one in the daytime and one at the nighttime. And when they took away the electrical parade, and then when this parade was over at night, then they would do the fireworks, because that's American.
That's right.
So in 1973, the U.S. government actually created a committee to encourage and coordinate bicentennial events across the entire United States. It was called the American Revolution Bicentennial Administration. That's fancy, isn't it? And ultimately responsible for a lot of things that we remember about the bicentennial area. So like the bicentennial quarter, that bicentennial logo that you saw painted on the side of the vehicle assembly building at NASA for years and years. That was all done under the auspices of this thing. They were huge. There was a huge 4th of July thing. There was like a Tea Party reenactment. The Queen of England came over. There was just a whole bunch of stuff. So, and all of this actually worked. By 75, America was actually in like a huge bicentennial frenzy, and people were super excited about this. I don't know, Todd, you're old enough to probably kind of remember.
I do remember. I even have some film of bicentennial parades I attended when I was young, with all sorts of things going on, flags everywhere, and yeah, it was quite a time.
Yeah, I mean, my family, they actually, besides going to Disney, which we always did in the springtime, it's like we got packed up, and in the summer we went to Philadelphia in '76 to go see Independence Hall and touch the Liberty Bell, because you could get around it then and do all that stuff. So
thanks for not stopping to say hello, Joe.
I'm like, how old were you then? Were you even born?
I was 2.
You're 2.
I was 2.
I didn't know. If I would have known, I would have done it. So not to pass up the opportunity, Disney decided that they wanted to ride that wave of publicity in a way that Disney does so well. So they did a couple of things, like opening America Sings in Disneyland, which is all about America and was a great tie-in. But their biggest thing was this initiative by the Parks and Entertainment Division to create a 15-month promotion around America on Parade. And when I say a 15-month promotion, the same way that they do Wishes or any of the other like big advertising promos, America on Parade was actually that big advertising promo from 75 to 76. So this was everywhere. It was in fact the linchpin of their entire marketing campaign. So they had a TV special starring Red Skelton. There were books, picture disc records, lunchboxes, puzzles, license plates, glasses, and you can find a lot of this stuff on eBay still. It was on the cover of the guidebooks, and even the cast members got America on Parade like name tags for that time period. So, I mean, this was hugely important for them. It just seems like this little parade now, but...
What's the difference between a record and a picture disc record?
Oh, yeah. That's a good question.
So back in the olden days, and of course they're doing this now too, I think, instead of just like a black vinyl record, they would actually take a full 4-color printed picture and put it underneath the vinyl and press that into the record. So when you looked at it on both sides, it had like 4-color artwork on it.
Oh, and the needle could touch the side with the picture and still play?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right.
I had a Superman one that was round, but it had the logo of Superman on the record. Yeah.
Yeah. There was also a musical souvenir of Walt Disney World record that was done the same way too. So it was.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that. Okay.
So this was a big deal to them. They were really betting the farm on this. So the parade was produced by Disneyland Entertainment's director Bob Yanni, and it was designed by a Tony Award-winning Broadway set designer named Peter Larkin. And allegedly, the production team spent a year doing research on this, trying to figure out what the best way to present this would be. So I don't know how much of that time was spent at the Tam O'Shanter or how much of it was actually done doing legitimate stuff, but like they really apparently put their heart and soul into this. The parade was about 30 minutes long, consisted of 50 units. Each float and parade element was actually created in duplicate because there was one version made for Disneyland and one version made for Walt Disney World. And the work was so massive that they actually had to split it up amongst multiple vendors for the construction. And the construction on the parade units was actually done by like different people across the entire United States. So it was a heck of a lot of work. Some of the parade units were as tall as like 30 and 40 feet and were actually engineered to be able to raise and lower in order to get through backstage areas, particularly at Disneyland, where they had all kinds of weird bridges and things they had to deal with. And the basic idea of the parade is that it would be a birthday party for America. And the large scale, like the hugeness, was chosen for this because they apparently wanted it to appear as if it was all through the eyes of a child. At least that's what they said. So,
well, that kind of starts to explain things.
Yeah, yeah, it does. And then because of the large floats, the characters, which were called the People of America, were created at a large scale to go with those large floats. So they designed and built these 8-foot tall characters. Kind of like gigantic versions of the Small World kids, where they were all fairly generic, kind of like stamped out of fiberglass, and then they would decorate them with, different hair and different costumes in order to make them individual.
So I wonder if them being tall was this idea that you were looking up from a small perspective of a child, you said. So was that why they were tall, that you were a small child looking up to these things that were so grandiose and large?
Exactly. So even the adults would feel as if they were children.
And all the proportions of everything was skewed too, like the covered wagon and stuff was
right. Oh, everything was gigantic, and everything was kind of like wacky off perspective. When you go look at the pictures of it, the design is, like I said, it's weird in a very 1970s way. And today you see a lot of pictures of the parade out of context or not out of order, but there actually was kind of a set order that the parade went to. It is supposed to tell the social history of America rather than sort of like the historical version of America, because they didn't really want to get into like wars and things. So you see the same problem we've talked about, like Hall of Presidents and the American Adventure, and how do you kind of tell that history thing? So They wanted to get away a little bit from just like a straight history thing and sort of discuss, the growth of the country, the inventions that we had, the entertainment that we came up with, and less about like this thing, that thing, and the other thing.
Right.
So the parade opens with what I think the designers hoped would be sort of the iconic float, Mickey, Goofy, and Donald on a takeoff of the Archibald Williams painting The Spirit of 76. So that's the thing that we've all seen, where there's like a flag in the background and one person playing a fife and another person with the drum. And they were on a giant snare drum with like this enormous eagle behind them. The first section... What's that?
Very glorious.
Very glorious. And that was used for the logo, and you'd see that in the pictures and stuff. That was probably the thing that they hoped to be the icon rather than the sandwich. The first section was called Discovery and Settlement. It had a large float of Columbus's ship as he sailed looking for America, a giant turkey being pulled by pilgrims. So for you turkey leg fans, that's probably where this all started. A pilgrim house interior, and a really, really weird float devoted to pilgrim punishment. So you may have seen this tweeted out in the past month or so. It had a guy in like a stock on the back and the front of it was a guy on a big lever, like pushing this woman like up and down out of a giant kettle. Like, I don't know if they were testing to see if she was a witch or something. But
She weighs as much as a duck.
liver or a lever?
She looks like one.
It's really
Throw it
strange.
into the pond.
They did this
she's a
nose. Full snows.
That's an
Line
awesome
from
float,
Monty
though.
Python and the Holy Grail if you haven't seen it, folks.
The next section was called The Making of a Nation. It had a mobile version of the Liberty Bell, cannons, a marching band made up of the scary people of America, and the floats focused on a lot of colonial buildings. There was a thing of like Ben Franklin on a rooftop flying the kite trying to discover electricity, a version of Independence Hall, and the one that probably sticks out in everybody's minds was this giant float of Betsy Ross on a rocking chair sewing the American flag. After that was a section called The Making of a People, and that chronicles our Western expansions. It had riverboats, like a full-blown, like full-size, sort of like deconstructed riverboat, plus people on sort of like river rafts, Conestoga wagons, teepees, a full Western town, and the
so
showpiece.
Where
The
did they
showpiece was
store all this stuff?
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
just-
They
you know,
probably had
it's-
they must have built like a big parade building for that
Yeah.
somewhere. And the centerpiece was kind of like two railroad engines pointed at each other. One went backwards and one forwards, and that was supposed to be about driving the Golden Spike, connecting the East and West railroads. And there was actually like a walk-around character with a big hammer and a spike.
I love these characters. They're so funny looking.
Oh, yeah.
And then that took you up to the Victorian era. And then the last section is called The Making of Society. So that focused on America's achievements in inventions like the telephone and the phonograph, the electric iron. So there was a giant electric iron, a light bulb, and then also what we did with transportation. So there was this massive float that had a Wright Brothers airplane up at the top, sort of connected to an ocean liner, connected to a car and a locomotive and a biplane, and at the end was like a sort of like this weird like silver missile rocket that an astronaut would hang out of and wave to people. There was also a float based on sports. So there was like a reference to football, baseball, basketball, tennis, and golf. And the weirdest section of the parade was devoted to American snacks.
The food.
And we do dedicate this section to Michael Crawford, Progress City, USA, who tweets photos of these parade floats probably about once a month just to remind us of how odd they are.
Never forget.
Yeah. So there were giant donuts and ice cream cones and hamburgers and lollipops that the characters would carry, and then floats of a banana split, like a giant box of popcorn with popcorn
The
coming out
popcorn
of the
box
top.
was cool because they had kernels like popping out of it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that was
on these
cool.
wires and stuff, and the hot dog alongside.
Yeah, the
of it
hot
was
dog
where the
attached to the
driver was.
side.
Yeah.
It's like a hot dog sidecar.
And then, and notoriously, this enormous Dagwood style sandwich, like piled up 30 or 40 feet.
With the accompanying condiments.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There was a little mustard float and a little relish float.
I wish I could see this. Like, is there an odd chance I could bring it back? I would love this.
It was, and that's, as a kid, I remember I got to go see, I think we traveled twice to Disney while this ran, and we would, I think the first time we probably saw the whole parade, and then the second time it's like we ran into the tail end of it, and I remember being like, I don't know, let's see, so 70s, I would have been like 8,
Well,
just staring at this thing like, what the?
Yeah, you know, watching some of the film here, the characters. So people, you gotta remember that they're what, 8 feet tall, right? Hal? About
Yeah.
8 feet tall. The people inside them are looking through the necks, and they're they don't have gloves on. They're using their real hands. So all the
their little
proportions are
tiny
wacky.
arms.
So you know what it reminds me of? Do you remember Kristen Wiig's character from the Saturday Night Live skit?
Short arm lady.
Yeah, Eunice Marahal was her name on the Lawrence Welk show. It's kind of like that level of creepy.
It reminds me too of like that combined with Team America marionettes. Like like they have that same like wobbly like upper trunk type thing going.
Yeah. So those were the characters that would later get made into new versions and were used at Epcot Center for the characters that would meet you around World Showcase. So they didn't get to use the same ones, but they rebuilt them using those molds.
So the ones at Epcot could blink. Did the ones in America on Parade have the working eyelids?
That's a good question. I'll have to watch
I'm not
the film closely.
Yeah. So how many? I mean, you watch the parade on the film here, and it's just these creepy characters. They just keep coming. It's like a nightmare that won't end.
So there were 150 of them made for each parade. So there were a total of those 300 creepy things crawling around somewhere.
That's crazy.
In fact, there were so many characters in that parade, they could not hire enough people to staff the parade as hourly workers. So they actually set up like work-study programs with the high schools in Orlando and in the Anaheim area. And they had high school kids come in for dual credit of high school class credit, and then also like they got paid something, probably not the same as a regular performer, in order to staff that parade during the course of its run because there were just so many characters in it.
So 2 credits for gym class, 90-degree weather outside, carrying heavy costumes. That's about it.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Thanks, Disney. So characters. So Disney characters finally did appear in the final section of the parade, representing pop culture. So the 3 little pigs and the big bad wolf were inside of sort of like this giant film frames with sprockets. Winnie the Pooh was in a big TV with rabbit ears, and the Jazz Cats from the Aristocats were up on this sort of like record player with a platter of records, which probably makes no sense to you. If you saw the picture now, you'd probably wonder like, what is that weird thing? But back then there were actually these devices that you could stack on your record player, so you could have like 6 or 7 records stacked up, and when one record was done it would drop down and play the next one.
Brilliant design on the record player. I remember those.
There's one float that's devoted to the circus, and it says America, the greatest show on earth on both sides. And Dumbo's in the middle of it. There's like a monkey in a fez riding a unicycle. And this kind of like weird sort of sexy furry looking fox like on a trapeze. It's that one is a little much. And then sort of like the familiar Disney characters like Mickey and Minnie and such were on these sort of these giant hot air balloons that were rolling down the street. And then the very last float before it went away, just to like give you one more punch in the face of America, was one of those giant head things as a Statue of Liberty and a giant head Uncle Sam, like on this enormous golden eagle with a shield.
And big ribbons and standing on drums. I mean, the Flash is I'm watching the film. The Flash is going off as that thing came down the street. It's unbelievable. It's just overexposure, America.
Now, when this was running, it did the daytime show. Now, like at night, did it replace what was the electrical pageant that night?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And they ran it. I also I noticed my grandparents took. We have some of this film from my grandparents because it started running in '75, right? It was late '75, and it was running the opposite direction too. I think they ran it in both directions. It would go down Main Street and also come up Main Street too.
Oh, it might have been such a pain to try to coordinate it going back.
Yeah, they have the footage as it coming through Liberty Square from Frontierland and making that turn right in front of the Liberty Square Tavern, and then continuing down that way into towards the castle. So and actually I'm looking at some of David Coolidge's footage that we have online, and it is indeed he's shooting it from probably the front of the Emporium at this town square. And in the background, you can see the train station. It's coming around in front of the train station towards the firehouse. So it definitely ran in different directions.
And even though it was a night parade, it was not self-lit like the Main Street Electrical Parade. There were just like these giant floodlights that they put up and down the parade route to like shine big lights on it so that way you could see it at nighttime.
Do you see the one in our video here? It's the guy pulling it is just like some guy on a tractor just dragging one of the floats down. Like he's not a character either. He just looks like Clem got on his MTD yard machine and started dragging it.
Might have been a breakdown.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, but it's nothing fancy, just a guy.
Now, if you're going to mention here, but this was also kicked off on a TV special too.
Yeah.
Monsanto Night presents Walt Disney's America on Parade, hosted by Red Skelton.
Red Skelton, because he's more relevant than Red Skelton. And right now everyone is just saying, who is Red Skelton?
Yeah. And apparently there's a number of Francine York, John Arvan, Basil Hoffman played himself. The kids of the Kingdom. I don't know who that.
That's supposed to be the Kids of the Kingdom.
Oh, it's typed wrong.
It's a typo.
Right. Following up on our discussion of the large characters, I did find my note on this. Steve Taylor was the source. Steve Taylor was the second individual to play the Dreamfinder at Epcot. Worked for Disney for many years. He worked on America on Parade. And he says that the Epcot-centered dolls had eyes that moved. The America on Parade ones did not. And they were definitely not the same stock of dolls that were pulled out of mothballs that they made new ones for.
A stock of dolls.
So we have it straight from the Dreamfinder's mouth.
So there are still 300 America on Parade dolls somewhere out
just
there.
Hanging in warehouses by
What he said was after 15 months of twice daily use, because they did it at night too, that they were not in the best of shape when they finally retired it, and no one would actually want to wear one of those masks after 15 months and then 6 years in storage.
There has to be one sitting around somewhere. Like just
I'm sure there's more than one.
There's photos which if it's not part of the stock that we have, it's like I'll make sure to put in the photo that's in one of the books of just like this warehouse with like the heads just sitting there. It is the creepiest thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So the one last kind of distinct part about the show was the music. So it was mostly made up of American standards, folk tunes like Yankee Doodle, Your Grand Old Flag, Take Me Out of the Ball Game, that stuff. But after the success of the synthesizer stuff in the Main Street Electrical Parade, they wanted to make sure that they did something sort of unique and different with the music. So someone got the idea to use a band organ as the main musical source. And for those of you who still frequent Disneyland, and if you were sort of like a old-timey Walt Disney World visitor, you used to be able to always find, and you can still find in the arcade on Main Street in Disneyland, a band organ, which is this large machine that uses kind of like a piano roll type thing, and it's got a bunch of pipes and actual musical instruments inside. You put in a quarter, and then it runs sort of like this music roll thing through it, and it blows air and like through the horn sections and actually like plucks strings on instruments. So it's this huge sort of mechanical music making machine. So it could sort of simulate the sound of a small orchestra, but it was self-played. So think of it as like a giant player piano with like trumpets and drums and banjos and all kinds of crazy stuff on it.
I remember seeing that. Why do I remember seeing it recently?
It didn't. Well, there's a couple things. It was in Main Street Station, wasn't it, Hal?
I want to say the Emporium.
I do
Was
not.
I'm not sure. I remember seeing it.
So I can tell you, at Walt Disney World, there was one inside of the Penny Arcade.
Okay,
for
maybe
many
that's where I
years.
saw it.
Walt Disney World, for some reason, actually owned, I want to say, like 6 or 8 of them for a really long time. And occasionally, when they would do conventions and things, they would actually bring them out in the hallways outside of the convention and set them up for people to use. And I want to say there's also a really big calliope that was part of that collection that's on like a horse-drawn carriage.
Yes.
That they will bring out from time to time.
I have footage of that one going through 1986 or so, coming through.
So what I do not know at this point, and if someone is out there that knows this, it could be tied into this, because it was a huge collection, and when they closed the Penny Arcade, they actually sold off like a lot of the Penny Arcade stuff and a bunch of these band organs that they had sort of in storage. So I don't know if they purchased them prior to the park opening, or if it became part of when they bought the band organ that they actually used to record the music for America on Parade. So apparently whoever was in charge of picking up the music listened to a bunch of albums of band organs, and believe it or not, this was actually a real thing. when I used to go like diving for old vinyl albums and like people's garage sales and at like Goodwills and things, I would constantly come across these LPs from the 60s of like recordings of band organs. So they listened to a bunch of different ones, and they decided what they wanted to use was this band organ called Sadie Mae. That was at, I don't know if it was a theme park or what this thing was, but there was a thing in Sikeston, Missouri called the Gay 90s Village, and it had, I guess, a whole band organ collection. So they bought this band organ, broke it down, moved it to Nashville, put it back up, and did the recording for America on Parade, like at the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville. And they also videotaped this using the cameras for the TV show. So you can actually go on YouTube and watch the recording session for this. So we'll post a link to that out so you can see what that looked like, which is pretty strange. The band organ was actually built in France in the 1800s, and it was used on a carousel in Grand Rapids, Michigan for a lot of years. And the really weird thing about this is, so they went and picked that band organ and said, this is one that we want to use. They, of course, wrote music. They actually wrote their own arrangements for this show, so it was original arrangements of these folk songs. And then they discovered that there was only one guy left in the world that actually knew how to make the piano roll-styled music books in Antwerp, Belgium. So they had to pack up all of the charts for the music that they were doing and ship it over to Belgium and have them actually like hand cut the books that were used for this. So they went way, way out of their way in order to put this thing together.
I have a Disney band organ story. One of the, at one time, a band organ, circus themed, is in a museum not far from here called the American Treasure Tour, not far from where I live. It's about, actually, JT, right where we were last year for RetroCon in Oaks, the American Treasure Tour is there. Oh. It is this gigantic warehouse. And when I say gigantic, I mean gigantic. And some wealthy benefactor who loves to collect things began this museum, which is really nothing more than a warehouse where this stuff is all displayed. And it's anything from, I can't even describe it. I'm going to have to send pictures, tweet pictures, and post pictures in our article with this so people can understand what it is. But just imagine if you had a garage full of curiosities. There's a band organ in there that was purchased by Walt Disney and displayed at Disneyland. And it is circus themed, and at some point Disney got rid of it, and it eventually came into this guy's hands, and it is sitting 20 minutes away from my house. So I've seen it in the museum. On most tours, they actually strike it up and let you hear it because it's one of their showpieces. So that is the fate of one of them. I don't know if it ever made it to Walt Disney World or not, but
interesting. Yeah. I know. One day I happened upon the results of the auction from the sale. So it didn't say where any of this stuff ended up, but presumably this collection was scattered across the four winds. And it's really shame. I mean, to me, I really feel it's a shame because I spent a lot of time in the Penny Arcade. So, I saw that band organ and a lot of the mutoscopes and a lot of the old arcade machines they had in there. And it's a shame that stuff is all gone. So they use the band organ, Sadie Mae, and they also combined that with the sounds of a Moog synthesizer that was played by a guy named Don Dorsey. He was the guy that sort of worked out the whole computer control track system. The floats themselves would actually broadcast part of the music out to speakers externally. And at the same time, a backing track would play behind it that would come out of those speakers too. And it was done in a very crude fashion. It's like he would time it with stopwatches and try to work it out, and it was pretty tough. But later on, he actually devised a computer system that would do the same thing and keep everything in sync. And they actually laid, I want to say, like wiring or something underneath Main Street, so that way they could actually keep track of the float's positions as it went. So he actually invented this whole music synchronization system that is probably still used in some form in the parades today. And I want to say he still consults on a lot of parade stuff for Disney.
Yeah, think about it too, how difficult that is. You got all these floats. You need the music timed at the right time. It's not an easy task by any means.
Oh, it would be, I'm sure, a cacophonous mess.
Yeah.
If you didn't have some kind of synchronization.
Yep.
So
cool.
that's it. That's
a
America
lot of
on Parade
history
in a nutshell.
And there was also a book. Remember the America on Parade book that came out? It was a hardcover book. I have a copy of it somewhere, but I can't remember if I got it. But it is available on Amazon for starting at 39 cents if anybody wants to pick it up.
There were a lot of those. There was a hardcover version of that. I have a softcover version of that. There's a sort of like a 24
the paperback's going to set
booklet.
you about $271.
There's also a like a little golden book where Donald and his nephews go to the park and see the parade, and then through that actually kind of like travel back in time and have some little experiences within like the time periods of the Pilgrims and stuff. And these books were not just distributed at the parks. They weren't just souvenirs. These were published and available across the entire United States.
Right. Random House publishes. It's 143 pages. It's amazing. That's a lot. It's a lot to it.
It's a lot of America.
Yep.
Well, some of it is about the parade, but a lot of it is just kind of like history lessons too.
Right. Yeah. Just a little background on everything.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So take that, Festival of Fantasy. You think you're so special with your fire-breathing dragons and stuff.
All right. Well, thank you, Hal, for taking us back to America on Parade. So if you guys have any questions or any of our listeners have questions, feel free to email us at podcast@retrodisneyworld.com. So let's move on to our T-shirts and merchandise. So how last month we had the hydrolator shirts, as well as you had another one that you made too, right?
Yeah, the Murphy and Delaney hydrolator water elevator company.
Water elevator company.
Yeah.
Explain that to me. What is I didn't get it.
So as we discussed in the podcast, Murphy, forget his first name,
Murphy.
He said, "We got to have a hydrolator instead of an elevator." So then Tim Delaney, the designer, took that idea and actually turned it into something that was real. So they get dual credit for coming up with the idea and then executing it.
Yep. I like the origin story behind your designs. I feel like we should it would be cool to have a postcard with the shirt,
Yeah, we're going to have to do a page on our site that explains all these, and we'll have to add that in as we build the new site. Yeah.
It's kind of fun to pay tribute to the people that actually worked on stuff.
Now, where is Murphy and Delaney? Because I wish they would see it and then be like, "Oh, I want one."
So Tim Delaney still, he freelances for Disney still from time to time. He was actually a big wig with Imagineering for quite a few years, but I think now he's freelance. And Murphy, actually, I found him. He's in California. I don't want to say he's in California, and he does gourd art now.
Really?
Yeah.
Gourd art?
So he takes gourds,
and
then hollows them out and carves the outside of them with decorations.
Took quite the fall from designing an entire Epcot attraction to gourds. But hey, we do have a shirt named after him, so
yeah. Don't discount the gourds.
I will not.
So how do you have a design for this month?
So for this month, it's the 4th of July, and so I want to go a little retro Epcot, and if any of you happen to remember, there was an exhibit in Communicore called Visit the Manufactory, where you would put together an American flag using
What?
like yeah. Oh, JT. Oh well, young cub. Let me tell you.
Like fabric, like Susan, Betsy Ross or whatever that is.
Sort of. So using the crude touchscreen technology that we had at the time, there was a game, and what it was is in the center there was kind of like an assembly line, and then off to the right hand side there were like pieces of flags. So there'd be like the blue part, and then like the red and white stripes, and then the stars. And as the square of the flag that you were making would move up like into position, you had to like touch the like blue part and then touch the place where it's supposed to go, and then touch each stripe and like put it into the correct spot as the thing was like slowly moving. So it's kind of like Space Invaders in reverse. So instead of it coming down, it's like you would go up and then you'd put the pieces in place. And then
he's trying to have kids do assembly lines. They just love that concept of this is what your life could be. It's right.
That game was actually fun compared to the one where you had to like sort luggage and try to put it on a jet aircraft.
The right one.
Before that was the most frustrating game ever.
Now we're getting at a Communicore episode because I've got to remember the one that took the picture of your face and then scrambled it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you've got one from the manufactory.
Yeah. So we're going to do a 4th of July assembly one based on that touch.
Excellent.
Thing.
Great. So you can find all of our merchandise at retrodisneyworld.com/support us. And anything purchased, the proceeds go to continue this show on the air, as well as help set up our event that's coming up in November at Destination D. Also, as we talk about proceeds are used for different things, and in light of all the different events that have been going on in Orlando, there's no need to focus in on those any individual. We all know what's been going on down there. It's been a rough week for them. So some of the proceeds here from the sales will be donated to different funds and campaigns that have been set up to help those individuals. And how you've got some stuff going on as well.
Yeah, so on my personal site, I have an Orlando t-shirt. If you jump on my Twitter, Go Away Green, you can find a link to it. I did a t-shirt from Orlando, or like for Orlando, using the fountain in Lake Eola. And we're doing a fundraiser with that. 100% of the profits for that are going to a couple of different GoFundMes to try to help out the families of the victims from the shooting. And then there's another group of 5 designers that I'm included in. 4 of them are England. Designers United Against Hate. We've got a bunch of t-shirts. Each designer has picked one land from the Magic Kingdom, and we've done a shirt for that. And those proceeds, again, 100% of the profits from that are going to go to I'm going to try to help the victims of the shooting. So there'll be a link to those in the show notes as well, so you can find that stuff.
Yep. So for more information, follow along at House Twitter at GoAwayGreen, and proceeds from the Retro Disney World merchandise at retrodisneyworld.com/support us. All right. And along those lines, you're probably saying, well, okay, what's going on at Destination D? But the Retro Disney World crew, all 4 of us, will be there at Destination D November 19th and 20th at the Contemporary Resort. And we do have something special planned. We have we'll give you the title now, and details will come out in the next couple months, but it will be the Retro Disney World Lake and Lagoon Tour. So, yeah, keep your eyes tuned to Twitter and Facebook, and we'll announce things there. We've got some teasers coming out now and then, so definitely follow us if you're going to be down there. You're probably want to set aside an afternoon to join us on this little crusade, or cruise, I should say. So
crusade.
Ooh, I accidentally did it on purpose.
The Retro Disney World podcast is sponsored by Ticket Mama. For all of your Orlando area ticket needs, visit ticketmama.com for less than gate prices. And by Rental Car Mama. When renting in Orlando, visit rentalcarmama.com for discounts at Advantage Rent-A-Car and other firms. And by OrlandoVacation.com, vacation homes and discounts for the savvy Florida traveler. If you're interested in sponsoring the Retro Disney World podcast, please email us at info@retrodisneyworld.com.
So, well, thanks as always to all of our listeners. If you can give us a review on iTunes and a shout out wherever, or any review, greatly appreciated. If you have any questions and comments, feel free to write to us at podcast@retrodisneyworld.com. And we'll see you next month. So with that, Brian, take us out.
Follow Todd McCartney and Retro Disney World on Twitter and Instagram at RetroWDW, on Facebook at Retro Disney World. For all things Retro Disney World, including exclusive merchandise, visit us on the web at RetroWDW.com. On Twitter, you can find our producer, Jason Bartell from Deepwater Studios, at JasonDWS, our announcer, Andre Gardner, at Andre Gardner, and follow our hosts, Hal Bowers, at Go Away Green, for JT Kuzier, at LS1JT, and you can find me on Twitter and Facebook, at Brian P. Miles.